Hey everybody! Welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about someone you definitely know, someone who has been on our screens, in our headlines, and at the center of our conversations for decades. I'm talking of course about Donald Trump. Love him or hate him, you can't deny he's a fascinating figure. He's been a real estate mogul with skyscrapers that literally touch the clouds, a reality TV star who made two words, "You're fired," absolutely iconic, and of course the 45th President of the United States. It's like he's lived 3 or 4 different lives in one. His journey is one of the most incredible stories of our time. From the boardrooms of New York City to the Oval Office, his influence has been massive. He's changed the game in business, reshaped what it means to be a celebrity, and completely upended the world of politics. It's a story filled with huge wins, some pretty big challenges, and moments that made the whole world stop and watch. He's a guy who built a brand so powerful that just his name on a building means something. He's been a fixture of pop culture for as long as I can remember. So today, we're going to peel back the layers. We're going to look at the different sides of Donald Trump, the 15 shades if you will, that make up this incredibly complex and polarizing person. We'll explore the businessman, the showman, the politician, and everything in between. It's going to be a deep dive, a real explainer. So grab your popcorn, get comfortable, because this is a story you're not going to want to miss. Let's get into it. So let's start at the beginning, right? The first shade, the business tycoon. Before the White House, before the Apprentice, Donald Trump was all about real estate. Big, shiny, gold-plated real estate in New York City. He took over his father's company and just cranked it up to 11. He wasn't just building buildings, he was building a brand. The name Trump started appearing everywhere. Trump Tower, Trump Plaza, Trump everything. It was all about luxury, success, and making a statement. He wanted you to see his name and think, wow, that's the best. He was the king of the deal, writing a book about it and everything. He really defined that 80s go-getter, larger-than-life business persona, but, it wasn't always a straight line to the top. This is where it gets interesting. The business world is tough, and he had his share of struggles. There were some high-profile bankruptcies with his casinos and hotels. Some people saw these as massive failures, proof that it was all just smoke and mirrors. But for him, he framed it as just using the laws to his advantage, a smart business move to regroup and come back stronger. It's this incredible mix of massive success and very public challenges that really defined his business career. He always managed to bounce back, which is a key part of his whole story. Alright, so shade number 2, the celebrity. This is where things get really interesting because Trump wasn't just a businessman anymore. He became a household name, a genuine pop culture icon. And the vehicle for that? A little show called The Apprentice. I mean, who didn't watch that show? It was huge. Every week we'd tune in to see these aspiring business people try to win him over. And it all came down to that final moment in the boardroom. The tension, the drama, you could feel it through the screen. He was the ultimate boss, sitting there in that big chair deciding people's fate. And then came the catchphrase. 2 simple words that became legendary. "You're fired." Everyone was saying it. It was on t-shirts, it was in movies, it was everywhere. It cemented his image as this tough, no-nonsense leader who doesn't accept failure. The Apprentice wasn't just a TV show. It was a 14-season-long commercial for the Trump brand. It showed him as decisive, powerful, and in total control. This celebrity status gave him a platform that most business people could only dream of, and it laid the groundwork for everything that was to come. He was no longer just a guy on the business pages, he was a star. Now for a major shift. Shade number 3, the politician. For years, people kind of joked about him running for president, but in 2015, it became real. He came down that golden escalator in Trump Tower and announced his candidacy, and the world of politics was never the same again. He wasn't like any candidate we'd ever seen. He didn't talk like a politician. He didn't act like a politician. He was a complete outsider, and that was his biggest strength. He tapped into a feeling that a lot of people had, that the system was broken and needed someone from the outside to fix it. His campaign was a whirlwind. The rallies were massive, like rock concerts. He had these slogans that were just so simple and powerful, they cut through all the noise. Make America great again. That red hat became an icon in itself. He dominated the news cycle, and the debates were must-see TV. His leadership style was completely different. It was bold, it was direct, and it sparked so much discussion. People either loved his unfiltered approach, seeing it as authentic and honest, or they were deeply concerned by it. He rewrote the political playbook and pulled off one of the biggest upsets in political history. Okay, let's talk about shade number 4 because it's a big one. The controversial statements. A huge part of the Trump phenomenon is his communication style. It's unlike anyone else in the public sphere, especially in politics. He speaks his mind completely off the cuff, and it often leads to statements that just explode across the media. He doesn't use a filter, and that's something his supporters find incredibly refreshing. They see it as him being authentic and not a typical politician who speaks in carefully crafted sound bites. They feel like he's just talking to them directly, like a normal person would. But on the flip side, that same style is what his critics point to as being divisive and reckless. Many of his statements, whether from rallies, interviews, or his social media, have sparked huge national debates and at times outrage. He has a way of saying things that can be interpreted in many different ways, and it forces everyone to take a side. These moments became defining features of his public persona and his presidency. Every day you'd wake up and wonder, what did he say now? It kept him at the center of the conversation, constantly, and fueled the intense emotions that surround him. Let's circle back to business for shade number 5, the business dealings. Because even while he was becoming a celebrity and a politician, the Trump Organization was still a massive part of his identity. We're talking about a global empire. It wasn't just buildings in New York anymore. He had luxury hotels, sprawling golf courses, and residential towers all over the world, from Scotland to Dubai. Each property was designed to be the best, the most luxurious, a testament to the Trump brand of opulence. He was selling a lifestyle, an image of success that people wanted to be a part of. But just like his early career, these ventures were a mix of big wins and serious challenges. Some of his golf courses are world-renowned and incredibly successful. His hotels often command top dollar and rave reviews. However, other projects have faced financial difficulties or become tangled in legal disputes. There have been constant questions and investigations into his business practices, both before and during his presidency, which added another layer of complexity to his public image. It's this constant duality, the gleaming successes on one hand, and the persistent controversies and challenges on the other, that makes his business story so compelling. Alright, shade number 6, the media personality. This is different from being a celebrity on a TV show. This is about how he mastered and used the media landscape itself. And his weapon of choice? Twitter. Before him, no politician had ever used social media like that. It was his direct line to the public, completely unfiltered. He could announce policy, react to the news, praise allies, and attack opponents, all in 280 characters or less at any time of day or night. It was revolutionary. He essentially became his own press secretary, his own news channel. This created a media frenzy like we've never seen. The news networks would literally show his tweets on screen and have panels of experts debate them for hours. He knew that if he tweeted something provocative in the morning, it would dominate the entire day's news cycle. He had an incredible instinct for what would get a reaction and keep the spotlight firmly on him. Even after his presidency and being removed from some platforms, his ability to command media attention is just unparalleled. He fundamentally changed the relationship between politicians and the media, for better or for worse. And that brings us to the biggest role of all, shade number 7, the presidency. Stepping into the Oval Office in January 2017, he began one of the most talked about presidencies in modern history. From day one, he set out to deliver on his campaign promises. One of his first major achievements was a significant tax reform bill, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, which lowered corporate and individual income taxes. He argued it would stimulate the economy, while critics worried about its impact on the national debt and wealth inequality. It was a classic example of his policy approach, big, bold, and immediately divisive. He also focused heavily on deregulation, rolling back environmental and business regulations put in place by previous administrations. His goal was to unleash American industry, but this sparked fierce opposition from environmental groups and those concerned about public safety. On the global stage, he immediately shook things up. He withdrew the United States from the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal and began renegotiating other agreements like NAFTA. His America First approach signaled a major shift in U.S. foreign policy, moving away from globalism and creating new discussions and tensions with allies around the world. Continuing our look at his presidency with shade number 8, we have to talk about some of the major events and controversies that defined his time in office. One of the most significant and debated policies was his approach to immigration. This included the push to build a wall on the southern border and the implementation of a controversial travel ban affecting several Muslim-majority countries. These actions were central to his campaign promises, but led to widespread protests, legal challenges, and a national conversation about American identity and security that is still going on today. Another defining element was the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election, led by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. For 2 years, this investigation hung over the White House, dominating headlines and fueling political division. The final report detailed Russian efforts to interfere, but did not establish a criminal conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia. However, it did outline instances of potential obstruction of justice, leaving the conclusions open to fierce partisan debate. These major events were not just policy decisions, they were cultural flashpoints that deeply polarized the nation. For shade number 9, let's dive deeper into the specific policies that shaped his administration, both at home and abroad. Domestically, beyond taxes and deregulation, a key focus was on judicial appointments. He successfully appointed 3 conservative justices to the Supreme Court: Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. This was a massive victory for his conservative base, and will undoubtedly be one of his most lasting legacies, shifting the ideological balance of the nation's highest court for a generation. The confirmation hearings for these justices, especially for Brett Kavanaugh, were incredibly contentious, and highlighted the deep partisan divides in the country. Internationally, his America First policy led to some dramatic moments. He initiated a trade war with China, imposing tariffs on billions of dollars worth of goods in an effort to address what he called unfair trade practices. This had a huge impact on the global economy. He also took a different approach to diplomacy, becoming the first sitting U.S. president to meet with a North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, in an effort to de-escalate nuclear tensions. While the long-term success of these talks is debated, the images of them shaking hands were historic. He consistently challenged the established international order, for better or worse. Shade number 10 is all about the reaction. His leadership didn't just create new policies, it created deep, powerful reactions and divisions within American society. The country felt more polarized than it had in decades. His supporters saw him as a champion, a fighter who was finally standing up for them against a corrupt establishment. They felt a deep sense of loyalty and connection to him, packing rallies and defending him fiercely against any criticism. For them, he was giving a voice to the voiceless and restoring a sense of national pride. The energy at his rallies was electric and undeniable. On the other side, his opponents saw his presidency as a threat to democratic norms, institutions, and civil discourse. This opposition was just as passionate, leading to massive protests, like the Women's March, which saw millions of people take to the streets across the country and the world. The phrase, "the resistance," became a banner for a broad coalition of groups who opposed his agenda. Every policy, every statement, every tweet seemed to deepen this divide, forcing people to choose a side. It felt less like a political debate and more like a cultural war for the soul of the country. Let's focus on the long-term effects with shade number 11. We talked about his judicial appointments, but it's worth digging into the sheer scale of it. Beyond the Supreme Court, he appointed over 200 conservative judges to federal circuit and district courts. This is a legacy that will play out for decades, influencing rulings on everything from healthcare to environmental regulations to civil rights. It was a systematic and highly effective effort to reshape the judiciary, fulfilling a key promise to his base and ensuring his influence would be felt long after he left office. This judicial overhaul is arguably one of the most consequential aspects of his entire presidency. Another area with long-term effects is his use of executive actions. He relied heavily on executive orders to enact policy, especially on issues like immigration and deregulation, often bypassing a gridlocked Congress. While presidents have always used executive orders, his frequent and broad use of them sparked a debate about the scope of presidential power. Critics argued he was overstepping his authority, while supporters saw it as him cutting through bureaucratic red tape to get things done. This has set a new precedent and will likely influence how future presidents approach their own power, potentially leading to even greater swings in policy from one administration to the next. We can't talk about his legacy without addressing shade number 12, the impeachments. Donald Trump is the only president in United States history to be impeached twice by the House of Representatives. The first impeachment in 2019 centered on accusations that he had solicited foreign interference in the 2020 election by pressuring the president of Ukraine to investigate his political rival Joe Biden. The House charged him with abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. It was a dramatic, historic process that consumed Washington and the nation's attention for months. The second impeachment came in the final days of his presidency in January 2021. This one was on a single charge of incitement of insurrection related to the storming of the United States Capitol on January 6. While he was acquitted by the Senate in both trials, the impeachments are a permanent part of his record. For his critics, they represent the ultimate proof that he was unfit for office and abused his power. For his supporters, they were purely political, partisan witch hunts designed to overturn the 2016 election and stop him at all costs. These events have left an indelible mark on his legacy and the institution of the presidency itself. Now for Shade 13, which is fascinating, his post-presidency influence. Most ex-presidents fade from the spotlight, writing memoirs and staying relatively quiet. Not Donald Trump. He has remained the most dominant and influential figure in the Republican Party. He didn't just leave office, he continues to shape the party's direction from his home in Florida. His endorsements in primary elections are incredibly powerful, often deciding who wins and who loses. Candidates travel to Mar-a-Lago to seek his blessing, and his rallies still draw massive, enthusiastic crowds. He has effectively transformed the GOP. The party's platform, its messaging, and its identity are all deeply intertwined with him and his America First agenda. He has created a new kind of political power, one that doesn't rely on holding office. His influence is maintained through his statements, his rallies, and his connection with his base. This has created a situation where the Republican Party is still, in many ways, the party of Trump. This continued grip on the party is unprecedented in modern American politics, and shows that his impact is far from over. Shade number 14 brings us to the present day, the ongoing debates about his legacy and his future. The conversation about Donald Trump is as intense now as it ever was. His legacy is still being written, and people have vastly different interpretations of his time in office. Was he a transformative leader who exposed the failures of the political establishment and fought for the forgotten American? Or was he a disruptive force who damaged democratic institutions and deepened societal divisions? There is no middle ground in this debate. It's one of the most polarizing questions in our culture. And then there's the question of his future. He has continued to tease another run for the presidency, keeping the political world in a state of constant speculation. His potential candidacy hangs over both parties, shaping their strategies and calculations for the next election cycle. He is also facing numerous legal challenges and investigations related to his business and his time in office, which adds another layer of uncertainty and drama to his story. The ongoing debates and his future ambitions ensure that even out of office, Donald Trump remains one of the most central and talked about figures in the world. Finally, we arrive at Shade 15, the conclusion of this chapter of his story, his lasting impact. When you look back at everything, his impact on the presidency and on American culture is just undeniable. He changed what people expect from a president. The way they communicate, the way they campaign, and the way they interact with the media. He showed that an outsider with a massive celebrity profile could break through and win the highest office, completely rewriting the rules of politics. The presidency will never be looked at in quite the same way again. His influence goes beyond politics. He has had a profound effect on our culture, on how we talk to each other, and on the media we consume. He accelerated the polarization of the country, but he also activated millions of people who felt ignored by the political process. He put a spotlight on the deep divisions within America that were simmering long before he came along. His story is a reflection of our times, a story of celebrity, media, power, and division. No matter what you think of him, his 4 years in the White House and his larger-than-life persona have left a permanent mark on the United States. Wow, what a journey, right? From the boardrooms of New York to the world stage, it's clear that Donald Trump is not a simple figure you can define in 1 or 2 words. He's a complex tapestry of many different shades: the tycoon, the celebrity, the politician, the disruptor. We've gone through 15 of them today, and honestly, we could probably have done 15 more. His story is one of the most significant and debated of our lifetime, and it continues to unfold right before our eyes. It's a story that everyone has an opinion on, and that's what makes it so powerful. Every shade we discussed, the dealmaker, the showman, the president, played a role in shaping the man who has had such a massive impact on our country and the world. But now I want to hear from you. This is where the conversation really starts. Which of these shades do you think defines him the most? Was it the business tycoon who built the brand, the celebrity from The Apprentice? Or was it the politician who changed Washington? Maybe it's a combination of a few. There's no right or wrong answer here. I'm just genuinely curious to see what you all think, so jump down into the comments and let me know which shade stands out to you. I'll be reading through them because this is a topic I know we can all talk about for hours. And hey, if you found this deep dive interesting and want more content like this, please do me a huge favor and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next video. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.